One of the most interesting things to me that I learned about in this class was the Hispanic paradox. When I first learned about it in this class, I was really intrigued and I was so interested that I decided to write about it in my writing class as my research paper, and that's what I'll be talking about now. So in my paper, I discussed what the Hispanic paradox is, as well as how the term Hispanic can be misleading. So I looked into research studies that looked at health outcomes of Hispanics, and I specifically looked at ones that specified what subgroups that they studied in order to see if there are any health outcomes that existed that we would maybe not expect when thinking about the health paradox. There was one study that looked into infant mortality, and they separated the Hispanic population they studied by ethnicity. And as you can see up here, they found that most of the Hispanic subgroups had a lower rate of infant mortality compared to non-Hispanic whites, but Puerto Ricans and the other slash unknown Hispanic subgroup had a higher rate of infant mortality. There's another study that looked at infant mortality, but this time they divided the Hispanic population by race instead of ethnicity. And what they found was that white Hispanics had a lower risk of infant mortality compared to non-Hispanic whites, but Black Hispanics had a 20 to 30% higher risk of infant mortality compared to non-Hispanic whites. Um, Another study looked into cardiovascular disease mortality, and as you can see up here, they found that overall the highest rate um, of mortality occurred in non-Hispanic whites, and even when compared to all the other subgroups. But if you look at mortality specifically from ischemic heart disease, as you can see up here, the rate was highest in Puerto Ricans and Cubans. Um, there were other articles that I looked into as well that had data showing that non the Hispanic subgroups that they studied all had better health outcomes than the non-Hispanic white population. So still staying in line with the Hispanic paradox, but I feel that when we focus on the Hispanic paradox and use the term Hispanic in health research, it can cause a lot of the poor health outcomes that exist to be hidden, as I mentioned above. And I think that the Hispanic paradox is still really interesting, and I really think it's worth looking into and having more research about it. But I think it's crucial to not let the Hispanic paradox blind us to the health disparities that really do exist. Um, and I think it's important for future research to, when they study Hispanic population, to make sure they specify what subgroups that they are looking at so that we can find these health outcomes that exist and be able to implement interventions to address them.